Hello and welcome to the Week 4 episode of the Big Rican Buckeye Week in Review, as I go through each game this season, with the exception of Weeks 2 and 3, because they really weren't worth it. And I give you my take on what happened in Ohio State football world from the previous weekend. Today's Sunday, September the 25th. And last night, Ohio State did what everyone expected them to do, which was win their game against Wisconsin. But I didn't think anybody saw this coming. A 52-21 shellacking of the best defense they're going to play until the end of the season, in my opinion. As good as Notre Dame's defense was in Week 1, I think that was more entire offseason to prepare and intensity from their new coach, who is a Buckeye alumnus and was going into his first regular season game. They've given up a lot of points the last couple of weeks, with a loss in their second game to Marshall, and then beating North Carolina and giving up almost 30 points. So I'm going to run through my opinions of last night's game. I'm going to give you some stats, break down some of the plays that went down, and go over the things I liked that I saw last night. Now, mind you, I'm doing this, a lot of it off highlights, because Jim and I did do the Wise Guys show last night, so I was kind of paying attention, but not, as Jim and I discussed a ton of topics. A reminder, October the 15th, that Saturday will be the Wise Guys 1-year anniversary show, which really is going to be off the chain, to borrow a 90s phrase. Also, it will be our de facto Cleveland Cavaliers 2022-2023 season preview. And also, I wrapped up the guests tonight. I'm just waiting to hear back from Jim. Thursday night, October the 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern will be the Big Rican Baseball Show 2022 playoff preview. And this year, a lot of us are going to have some skin in the game, because the first thing I want to talk about is not Ohio State. On opening day this year, I did a national show with Willie Epting Jr. from the Shape Beck Media Group, and with Natalie Turk, who is the Cleveland Guardians beat writer for Sports Illustrated Cleveland. And Natalie and I both said we had the Cleveland Guardians as a wild card team this year. We just thought they had too much pitching, and the American League, outside of a couple of top teams, was a little bit suspect. Well, today, to the shock of most of baseball, I echo the words that Tom Hamilton said for the first time 27 years ago, September the 8th. Cleveland, you will have an October to remember, as the Cleveland Guardians have won the 2022 American League Central Division Championship, beating the Texas Rangers today, scoring over 10 runs. Stephen Kwan getting his first career grand slam to put the icing on the cake, and Terry Francona wins his, I believe it's his 4th division title in 10 seasons with the Cleveland Guardians / Indians. So here's my hope that they go far and they meet my boys in an October to remember for my two hometowns. But let's go back to Columbus last night, and let's talk about how Ohio State got the night started. Wisconsin won the toss and actually deferred to the second half. 6 plays, 82 yards later, and Ohio State scored the first touchdown of the night. Touchdown throw to Cade Stover that was the touchdown from Mayan Williams that he ran in. C.J. Stroud had a off night. He was only 17-27 for 281 yards, 5 touchdowns, and his first interception of the season. Yeah, off night. The fact that is an off night for C.J. Stroud tells you one thing, and that is Ohio State fans and the media at large, because they had said something about it too, expect more out of this quarterback than they have in previous quarterbacks that have come through Ohio State. He is that good and that polished already in Ryan Day's offense. They had 200-yard rushers last night. Trevion Henderson, 21 carries for 121 yards. Mayan Williams, 11 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dallin Hayden, who played really well in the game against Toledo, chipped in 8 carries for 31 yards. They ran the ball 43 times for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns last night. Emeka Ibuka led the team in receiving, 6 catches for 118 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Julian Fleming caught a touchdown. Cade Stover had a great night. He had 4 catches, 2 of them landed in the end zone. One of them was the play that Ohio State ran against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl in 2020. Justin Fields sprinted out left, turned back around and hit Jeremy Ruckert, who was wide open for a touchdown. They ran the same play last night with C.J. Stroud and Cade Stover. Now, the way the play sets up, and I don't normally do this, but diagramming this one was phenomenal. The way the play sets up, they bring motion from the right to the left. If you're C.J. Stroud here and I'm in the shotgun, you motion a wide receiver right to left, and all the action of the line and everything else moves left, and the tight end sneaks out to the right into the flat, and he's wide open. The entire defense rotates to the left-hand side of the field. All you got to do is square him up and hit him. And that one actually, Wisconsin played that pretty well. Because Stover had to dive into the end zone, actually got flipped up and landed on his head. Because of how well Wisconsin responded to that play. They had guys back there that tried to make a play to keep him out of the end zone. Stover's second touchdown catch was, I don't know if you could be more wide open than he was. Ibuka caught 2 touchdowns. One of them, I don't even know how Stroud did this. This was threading the proverbial needle between 2 defenders, and the only hands the ball touched was Emeka Ibuka's. Marvin Harrison, 3 more catches, 45 yards. He leads the team in receiving. Of course, Jackson Smith and Jigba did not play. So Ohio State was without their best offensive weapon, in my opinion, out due to injury. They also played very good defense last night, and that was without their 2 starting corners. Wisconsin over the years has not really been known for their aerial attack. And Mertz is not the kind of quarterback who's going to go up there and get into a shootout with C.J. Stroud and get a W, which that's not the way he's built. He's built for Wisconsin's offense. People were saying, oh, he's the second coming of Russell Wilson. Remember, Russell Wilson was an NC State quarterback before he went to Wisconsin. So Mertz he's a good game manager. He is not an elite quarterback. Well, there's nothing wrong with managing a game if you're going to win. But right now, Wisconsin's 2-2. So what did I see last night? Well, in the little bit that I saw and a little bit I watched as far as highlights go, I really like the way this offense has been clicking the last 3 games. And really since the beginning of the middle of the third quarter of the Notre Dame game up through now, they're doing something that they haven't done under Ryan Day, and that is they are pounding the rock when they absolutely need to. Even with a big lead last night, they had a 7-minute drive where they ran the ball the majority of the time, got key first downs through the air, but they were pounding the rock, and they scored a touchdown on that drive. That's huge, especially going forward with what the Big Ten is shaping up to be. According to one of my favorite analysts right now, R.J. Young, the only 2 teams that can run with Ohio State in that conference is the team up north and Minnesota, who Ohio State beat in Game 1 last year. Minnesota smoked Michigan State yesterday. But I don't know if that's proof Minnesota is a team to be reckoned with or if Michigan State is just not back to where they were under Mark D'Antonio. Their pass defense, has not been very good the last 2 years. If you remember, Ohio State scored 7 touchdowns on 7 straight possessions against Michigan State last year. Last night they scored in their first 4 possessions and just looked unstoppable. And now let's get to the defense because the defense was outstanding. They gave up 1 big play toward the end of the game. It was way out of hand. This game was, I believe, 31-7 at the half. And the crazy thing is, it didn't start that great for Ohio State. They muffed the kickoff. At the beginning of the game, the guy just dropped it. But they went 88 yards and scored a touchdown. So it was a great night. As a matter of fact, I can tell you what the score was at the half. It was 31-7 at the half. Ohio State put up 2 more touchdowns in the third quarter and a final capping touchdown in the fourth. This was a dismantling of a very good Wisconsin team. Their backs ran the ball well last night. Allen, their main tailback, Braylon Allen, 23 carries for 165 yards and a touchdown. Mertz, 5 carries, the quarterback, 5 carries for 15 yards and a touchdown. Listen, they played a really good team, and they didn't bring their A game. Jim Leonard took over in 2017 as the defensive coordinator. Jim Leonard was one of my favorite players when he was with the Jets. A lot of people remember that second year of Rex Ryan's tenure. It was the Jim Leonard broken leg the week of the New England game when they got smoked that Rex said was a turning point of the season. They thought they were going to go into New England and beat them and win both games that year, and it just didn't happen. But Jim Leonard's defense has gotten lit up by this Ohio State offense. Leonard, so that means he took over in 2017. So it means Leonard was the DC for that year's Big Ten championship game. The 2019 game where Ohio State ran all over them. The 2019 Big Ten championship game when Ohio State had to come back down two touchdowns to win and almost cover the spread. And then, of course, this game this year. It blows my mind that this team can change so much and have so many guys go to the NFL, this being Ohio State, and can still pick apart, and Ryan Day can still pick apart teams with the talent he has and the scheme. Now, that's the big thing. They weren't just getting guys open and having these big plays because of talent, which they have 5 stars all over the wide receiver room, with Brian Hartline maybe being one of, if not the best recruiter in the country. They scheme these guys open. Cade Stover, he played defensive end. He played linebacker last year, and now he's back to being a tight end, this big farm boy. He was schemed open every time. And they took advantage of big open holes in the middle of the Wisconsin defense, and they took advantage of linebackers who could not cover him. Now, as good as Wisconsin's defense normally is, they're a bunch of run stuffers first, because that's what they do well, and that's what you practice against, is your first team, and you got to stuff the run when you're playing Wisconsin. Ohio State did that last night. A lot of those yards, garbage yards. Guy had 165. 75 of them were on a play in the fourth quarter. So until that point, he ran for 90 yards. So all in all, a very impressive win. A 31-point decision at the Horseshoe against a quality opponent. Which brings us to next week against Rutgers. Also at the Horseshoe, it's a 3:30 start. That's games on Big Ten Network. They actually I don't think they're going to get to Fox for Joel and Gus to call him. Probably Michigan State the following week. Then the bye on the 15th, which is great because then Jim and I can do the show. The 22nd, they get Iowa at home. The 29th, at Happy Valley, which will be a great one because right now they're number 3 and number 11. On the 5th of November, they're at Northwestern. Don't know if that game will be played on campus or they're going to play that at Wrigley Field and do something special. Then they come home for Indiana, go to Maryland, and then home, where if everybody holds serve, it's the 3-4 matchup, high noon on the 26th of November, and playing that team up north. I believe C.J. Stroud will be the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and here's why. Bryce Young has not been nearly as impressive. Is it the weapons he had last year? Maybe. Jamison Williams, who came from Ohio State and went to Alabama in the transfer portal, was a phenomenal wide receiver. He just wasn't going to get on the field with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave playing in front of him. And the emergence of Jackson Smith and Jigba, his true freshman year, to being that number 3. So he went to Alabama. So was Bryce Young a product of what he had on the field? Because he still got tons of weapons. Yet to be seen. But when you throw 2 picks against Louisiana Monroe, that's a problem, in my opinion. So again, a huge win for Ohio State, a huge statement win in my opinion, because outside of Notre Dame, this is the best team they'll play for a little bit. Michigan State getting smoked by Minnesota, I think, really takes them down a peg. I haven't seen Penn State's schedule coming up, so I don't know who they've got in front of Ohio State. I don't know if they play Michigan this year. And then you have the interdivisional games with not only having Iowa on the schedule in a couple of weeks, but also Northwestern. You've already played Wisconsin, and you play, I think Indiana's not in the West, excuse me. So 3 teams from the West really includes the start of the conference schedule last night. So only 15 minutes. Didn't want to go too crazy tonight. I will be back in touch before the Big Rican Baseball Show, which is next Thursday. We're in the end of the baseball season. Before I go, I want to throw out a couple of things real quick. Today, outside of the Guardians, big day in baseball, the Mets finish a 2 out of 3 weekend in Oakland. They now go home for 2 against the Marlins, and then they have 3 against the Braves next weekend in Atlanta. So that game against Rutgers may be at 3:30, but if the Mets and Braves are playing in the afternoon, I won't be watching Ohio State next Saturday. I will watch the highlight package to do the review, and I will also make that a Mets-Braves series review. It'll probably be next Sunday night that I get that out. But a couple things happened over the weekend. Francisco Lindor became the first Mets shortstop to ever drive in 100 runs. And today, Pete Alonso, with a 451-foot 2-run homer, has broken the record for most RBIs in a single season by a New York Met. In 1999, Mike Piazza drove in 124. What's not remembered about 1999 is that his buddy Robin Ventura drove in 120. Now, I thought a great year from your third and your fourth hitter was right now they have 225 RBIs between the two of them. Ventura and Piazza had 244 runs driven in the middle of that lineup. That's why that Mets team was a playoff team and really an eyelash from a World Series. Let's see where this one goes. This one's got better pitching. So huge day. Mark Vientos, congratulations, gets his first Major League home run on Friday night in the beatdown that was the Friday night game. Eduardo Escobar hits his first grand slam. Mark Canha and Chris Bassett have great returns to their old home in Oakland. Mets handled their business. They took 2 out of 3 from the Oakland Athletics. Got the 2 against the Marlins. Which, by the way, today it was announced Don Mattingly will actually walk away from the Marlins at the end of this season. Donnie Baseball deserves another job. That job in Chicago looks good, and I'm going to tell Alex that. So with what's coming up, next Sunday night I will do a Buckeye review, and I will review the Mets series against Atlanta, although the Mets-Atlanta game is a Sunday night game next weekend. Remember, the Mets only need to get 1 to get the tiebreaker. Right now they still sit a game and a half above Atlanta in the division, with 2 against the Marlins coming Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Atlanta. The Mets get 1 and they end up in a flat-footed tie. The Mets and Braves, or if the Mets and Braves end up in a flat-footed tie, the Mets would win the Eastern Division because they hold the tiebreaker. So here we go. We're in the last 8 games of the Major League Baseball season, and it's about to get crazy. Division races have already been decided in the American League West, the National League West, the American League Central. And really, even though they haven't clinched the National League Central, I think the Cardinals are craziness. The fact that they came back from this. The wild card races are going to go right down to the last day, as is the Eastern Division in the National League. And the great part about that one is the winner of that division will be the 2 seed and get the bye. The loser of that division will be the 4 seed and have to play either Philadelphia or San Diego or Milwaukee. Could see Braves and Phillies for 3 in Atlanta starting that first couple days after the season's over. May see St. Louis having to play the San Diego Padres or the Milwaukee Brewers. So it could be the Dodgers, the only team out of the West, and then 2 teams out of the Central and the 3 teams in the East. It's going to be a fun last week. As I mentioned at the beginning, Willie Epting Jr. from the Shakeback Media Group, Alex Ruiz from Row 7 will actually be on with me Thursday night, October the 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern, live on the Big Rican YouTube channel and Twitch channel to preview the 2022 playoffs, the first year of the expanded playoff model. I have extended the invitation to Jim. Hopefully JC Blue Note will be on there with us. He always brings us stats. The rest of us just bring the guts. As always, Big Rican can be found here on the Big Rican YouTube channel, at Big Rican on Sport on Twitter, Big Rican on Sports on Facebook, Google, Anchor, Breaker, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Ask Alexa, play Big Rican. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody, which is, only about 3 hours. I will come to you next Sunday night, probably during the Met Brave game. We'll go over the Ohio State game from Saturday and what's happened the first 2 nights in Atlanta. Take care, everybody.